Week 2 of college football kicked off tonight on a Thursday night with that massive Louisville-Murray State game that we all anticipated and waited for. Cardinals squeaked by Murray State 56-0. Nothing is how much I caught of that game. Lions and Chiefs also suited up tonight in Kansas City. I know nobody watched that game, so we'll have to check on that one. The last I saw was 14 all. I think the Chiefs had the lead in that one, 14-14. But Louisville now 2-0 on the season. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis based on your participation, your engagement. Please leave your comments, your questions there in the chat. Consider the super chat as well. Even better than that, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App, where your contributions come directly to the Voice of College Football. We appreciate that. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. You just search Mark Rogers TV. Week 2 should be better, and I will make the prediction that it will be significantly better than Week 1. Week 1 brought us how many good games? Week 1 probably brought us the best games were the under-the-radar games. The best games were Texas Tech going to Wyoming, losing in overtime as a 2-touchdown favorite. Those kind of under-the-radar type of games that nobody was watching. In terms of the primetime, big-time games, yes, there were some surprises. There were significant occurrences. Clemson going down by 3 touchdowns at Duke and kind of shaking up the ACC race right out of the gate. Significant. LSU, Florida State, the Seminoles taking control in the second half, running off 31 consecutive points. Significant. Game was not that exciting in the fourth quarter, however, as the Noles really took control. Significant game, not an exciting game. Really good game. Best talent on the field for two teams was in Orlando for that game. Other than that, find me the good games in college football in Week 1, but there will be really good games in Week 2. Purdue, Fresno State. I'm guessing most of you did not watch that. That was an exciting game. But Penn State rolled over West Virginia. Most of the teams in the Big Ten just did what they were supposed to do. The Pac-12, congratulations to the Pac-12. You're 13-0. Feel good about 13-0. I don't know that it's going to last. We're going to go through the schedule from top to bottom. The top will start with maybe my favorite game of the weekend. My favorite under-the-radar game, Kansas hosting Illinois. Been talking about that game the entire offseason as an under-the-radar good one. For you hardcore college football fans, Texas Tech and Oregon, not under the radar. For the college football fans that just show up on Saturday, under the radar. I actually predicted in the preseason, if you look at my preseason predictions with Oregon losing a non-conference game, Texas Tech losing a non-conference game, some of you said, Mark, how can that possibly happen? Well, it was because I picked Texas Tech to go to Wyoming and do what they did, lose, and then come back home and, well, I guess they got to win for me now. But that's not necessarily my prediction. My predictions are on patreon.com/MarkRogersTV, 16-8 against the spread. I hear that's pretty good. 16-8 against the spread. You get those on Patreon. Also, we want to make sure, and I say this from time to time, we want to make sure that what we are delivering to you folks on Patreon is exactly the same as our YouTube membership. So we want those YouTube memberships to be just as beneficial with the same perks. So I got to do this. I will do this when we get done here, even though I've got to do a podcast for the Big Ten Paradigm. That's another initiative that's coming up here that we will talk more about on the College Gridiron Coast to Coast Network. They've asked me to do a podcast on the Big Ten, so we will do that. The Big Ten Paradigm. I just recorded it, got to put it together. But for you YouTube members, we will get you a Discord link and my predictions each week. So how we will get you the Discord link and the predictions will be just to set up a post on the community page that goes to members only with the Discord link And with my predictions, 16-8 against the spread, we will try to keep it up and do our best to hit 60%. We like to hit 80% straight up, and I'm 19-5 straight up, whatever that is. I think it's just about 80%. And 16-8 against the spread is way over 60%. But if I hit close to 60% this season, I'll be doing good work, and we typically get near that number. All right, let's take our first call of the night. And it comes from our buddy Ballard Sports Media.
What's up, Mark? How you doing tonight?
I am doing just fine. It's good to hear from you, Ballard. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to have college football back in full swing and getting ready for this Alabama and Texas game. And speaking of the state of Alabama, I actually wanted to get your thoughts on this game because I really don't know. I had to go and look this up, but I realized California, the Golden Bears, they're not as bad of a program as maybe they seem like as far as all time. I guess they are above 500, and I think I had tried to make a video. Thankfully, I didn't upload it. I was basically what I'm trying to get at is Auburn has to take a trip out there, and California has had some interest. Really one of the top programs today, obviously. But do you consider it a hostile environment over there? And does Auburn need to really have, do they need to be too careful with this game with Hugh Freeze? And
you cut out a little bit there, but I think we got the gist there. I could make a political joke about how hostile it would be there in the Bay Area, but we'll stick to football, of course. And so don't be confused or misled by the numbers. Cal has an above average or above 500 record all time, but let's understand that because of many of the games being played for everybody against the group of five or whatever the group of five has been called in the past, the smaller conferences, and then also FCS games. Every team in the Power Five has a winning record all time, except for Oregon State, Wake, probably Vandy's close. There's only about 4 or 5 schools in the entire Power Five that have an under 500 all-time winning percentage.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't overestimate Cal football. Cal football has been pretty awful for a long, long time. Now, they were good about 15 to 20 years ago. Aaron Rodgers, of course, highlighted some of their best players, and they had a lot of NFL players and still do, actually. People would be shocked to see how high Cal is on the list of NFL players even today. But for whatever reason, their best seasons have been 6 and 7 wins over the last 15 years. They have not been to the Rose Bowl since 1959.
Right. And that's
any major bowl game since 1959.
I because I was doing my research and, kind of like thinking about this game. And, I looked at the coaches for California. They had Sonny Dykes below 500. You had Jeff, what was his name? Tedford. He was just above 500 at like 59. Justin Wilcox, the current head coach, is 30-36. He's around the 400 range somewhere.
And his Pac-10 record is, Pac-12 record is even worse than that. It's terrible.
But when you look at it, I don't think people should go into this game thinking, well, Cal has never done anything. They haven't, they have had some really good football history. And, of course, we know about Auburn. I would say they're probably not the best today, but like I said at the beginning when you first brought me on here or whatever, never underestimate the Power Five on the road. And Auburn's going to, they've played some Pac-12 teams in recent years, but when's the last time they traveled to the West Coast to play in the Pac-12?
They went to USC in 2002 or 3.
It's been a while. It's been maybe
I don't think they've been back out there since. I don't think.
So, I mean, it's one of those where like Auburn's in a position where they have to go on the road to unfamiliar territory, but it's a game they should pull off. But if
They
Cal
better
pulls
pull
off
this game off.
yeah, they better pull it off. And I don't know, man. I'm a big believer in Hugh Freeze, and you know me, Mark. I'm an Alabama guy, but I have high hopes for Hugh Freeze. I'd like to see the Iron Bowl rivalry and everything be more competitive. Maybe we get top 10, top 15 matchups more often, and I hope he turns it all around. But I don't think this is a game where he's going to make a statement as a head coach.
So what does that mean? Does that mean Auburn's going to lose this game?
No. I do think they're going to win. I'm just saying, don't take the win and say, "Look what Hugh Freeze can do." Because I mean, it's California. It's the Golden Bears. Like we said, historically, all time, really good, but recency, not much. I
I'm
think,
not saying they're really good all time. I'm saying they're pretty bad. They're one of the worst, probably 5 to 8 Power Five programs in history.
yeah, I don't know. I view teams above 500 to be, you know,
Yeah, but Ballard, I just explained that everybody's over 500 except for like 3 schools. So does that mean
yeah, I understand
everybody in the
that.
Power Fives? Yeah, basically.
No, that wouldn't make sense. That wouldn't make sense. So I guess, but
But yeah, it's not
um,
an easy spot, and Auburn's going out there as just a 6 point favorite. So they're not a heavy favorite.
what I will consider is this: they get Georgia on the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. They get Texas A&M before that. If they could, I think they win the next 2 games. I think they'll go. I think they'll handle Cal. They get Samford. They go to College Station and get a road win like that. Then they're undefeated against Georgia. I don't think they're going to beat Georgia, but let's say if they make that competitive, that could show a lot for Hugh Freeze this year. I don't think the goal, like you want to get back to winning in that rivalry, you want to get back to winning an Iron Bowl, you want to get back to SEC dominance for Auburn, but it doesn't have to all happen right away. But this is a good year with how the schedule is set up to where they can play their cards right. And I'm not saying like pull the upsets, but look like a really competitive team on paper.
Yeah, I think a good year for Hugh Freeze in Auburn is that they don't get blown out on a regular basis. If they get blown out once or twice, especially against Georgia, it's not the end of the world. It's a developing program. They're competitive against the teams that are in the mid to low tier in the Western Division: Arkansas, Auburn, or I'm sorry, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Those teams be competitive, win those games. If they go 4-4 in the SEC, to me, that's an excellent season.
Yeah. Considering how it was the past 2 seasons, at least.
Yeah, they've got to play Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU, and Georgia. There's probably 4 losses right there.
Yeah. Where's that LSU game? I got it pulled up. They
They
got to
should
go
be in
on.
Death Valley. Yes.
Yeah, that's Death Valley. And they hit the bye week before that, too. They haven't really had much luck in Death Valley, but I don't know. They're pretty hyped up over here in the state of Alabama about Hugh Freeze. They're ready for it. They're prepared. They're just excited on the plains right now. And even as an Alabama fan, like I feel happy for them. I feel excited, and I want to see the teams in this state do very well, and hopefully, Auburn can be. I think go back to Gus Malzahn real quick. The problem with him was inconsistency because he had those couple good seasons where he did beat both Georgia and Alabama. He had the years where he beat just one of them, and it just was a roller coaster with Gus Malzahn. I mean, you didn't know if he was going to go 500. You didn't know if he was going to win 10 games. Can they find that with Hugh Freeze? That's a big question.
Yeah, Auburn's one of the few programs that has been able to go to multiple national championships games just in the last 10 or 12 years. So you can do it at Auburn. It's tough place to play, tough to match up against the standard of Nick Saban in Alabama in the same state, but it's been done. Yeah, Gus Malzahn had 2 seasons that were really outstanding seasons, and otherwise his run at Auburn was pretty lackluster, pretty much 8-5 across the board. But those 2 years, yeah.
Yeah. And then I did watch a little bit of your Texas Alabama video earlier. Do you have a prediction? Or, I mean, I'm sure you probably don't care who wins. You just want to watch it for quality entertainment. But did you come up with a prediction for Alabama, Texas?
We leave our predictions on Patreon, so I like to honor those folks. We'll probably reserve a few predictions to release here, but I've not made any prediction on the game. Nope. I will.
All right. Well, I'm going to say I took Texas in my video, and I'll give you the score of 28-24. I think it's a little bit more than last year. I have a feeling Texas is going to be fired up I think both teams will be fired up. I don't know. I have a gut feeling Sarkisian wants this win.
Well, I hope he wants them all.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Ballard. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Ballard picking the upset there in Tuscaloosa against his own team. So got to respect that in regards to not being Homer, going with whatever analysis he's put together. Texas winning. All right, we will keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. And our look at week 2. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
We've got Mr. Dan Cornman here. How you doing, Mark?
Hey, Dan. What's going on?
Well, got week 2 coming up. I'd just like to point out the elephant in the room this week that's going to get all the attention yet again. Deion Sanders and Nebraska, they're going to get all the attention this week, and that's all that's going to be talked about over the national media because Deion Sanders is the savior of Colorado. And I don't mean that sarcastically.
Well, it sounds like you do, which is fine. I love good sarcasm.
I don't mean it with sarcasm. I think he could save Colorado football, and honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing it. I'm going to go on to another note. I think everybody has been a bit unfair to LSU.
Okay.
Because I didn't watch it, but I did see the score throughout the game. At the end of the third quarter, FSU was only leading 24-17. And yeah, they did pull away. But I think that LSU played a pretty good game, at least on paper. Jaden Daniels did pretty good, only 1 pick, only 1 touchdown though, but he did throw for 346 yards. So, I mean, in a sense, I think that LSU did a pretty good job. I only saw 1 fumble, at least that's what I'm seeing here. So, and I haven't seen the rankings yet, but I don't know how far LSU dropped. But I'm assuming they got taken out of the ranking. If I'm right on that, I'm not sure.
Well, I can appreciate your measured approach in that you're not overreacting, you're not a hater, you're not overly critical, all of those things. So that is a breath of fresh air because most people dive on the other end that all the teams that win in week 1 are the greatest teams and the teams that lose, how dare they? They're awful and they'll never recover. But LSU played a pretty lousy football game. And Brian Kelly acknowledged that after the game. they didn't look good really doing much of anything. Jaden Daniels played all right. Yeah, he amassed a lot of garbage yardage in the fourth quarter when they were down by 3 scores. Their receivers dropped a lot of passes for receivers that are supposed to be comprising a top 5 to 10 wide receiver room. They have pretty much a non-existent running game from the running back position. Their defense, their secondary got torched on a regular basis. But other than that, no,
well, like I said, I didn't really see that game. I was pretty busy that day, so I mean, just on paper, it looked like it was an okay game throughout the first 3 quarters, and then they just pulled.
Sure.
Then they just pulled, and then it just looks like LSU just pulled away, or FSU just pulled away.
Yeah.
So
well,
I don't really
I don't. Game.
Yeah, I know, and I don't. Why does everybody go to like the criticism factor? Oh, this team's terrible. Like when
right.
Nebraska lost to Minnesota, Nebraska looks terrible. But if you look at it on paper, Nebraska's defense did really well against Minnesota. It's just they have a quarterback problem. So I think we need to be a little more giving to like the teams that are the underdog in this case, to which LSU was. We knew they were going to lose, maybe not
LSU
by that.
Was not the underdog. They were the favorite. They were a slight favorite. 1.5 to 2.5 point.
Apologies, but okay, then maybe we need to be a little more giving when the upset actually happens, because now we have to say, okay, maybe they're not what we expected, but maybe give it time, they'll fix it.
Absolutely. So I am a bit surprised to hear this take, but that's a good thing, because most people, as you say, are on the other end of the spectrum, piling dirt on anybody who lost, or in the case of some teams, even if they won by 3 scores, piling dirt on them after week 1. I tweeted out during, I think it was the LSU Florida State game, a long list of scores from games in September, previous seasons in which teams either lost or looked really bad against marginal teams and still recovered to win national championships. So people need to pump the brakes. However, LSU didn't play they didn't play a good game. So I'm going to counterbalance that by bringing it into question. The criticism comes because LSU and Florida State were supposed to be evenly matched teams, and they were into the third quarter. And then if a team is truly a national championship contender, unless they severely fix things, they gave up 31 straight points to Florida State. They were not competitive in that game. When you give up 31 consecutive points, so LSU's last touchdown, meaningless, didn't matter. So they basically did not score in the second half. So they were largely lousy.
Oh yeah.
So they've got a really good team with a lot of talent, with a capable head coach and coaching staff. So their season's still in front of them. That was a non-conference game. They've not lost any ground in the SEC. So they still have plenty of time to recover and make this a good season. But they were lousy on Monday night.
Yeah, and I apologize because I said that I thought that they were taken out. They were actually put at the number 14 spot, to which I don't think that's bad considering the fact that they lost that game. However, I did see the Duke and Clemson game.
Yep.
And I'm gonna be honest. Duke is I think Duke is a lot better than they thought they were, and I think that Clemson way underestimated them, and that's why I think that they lost that game. I saw a number of fumbles and a couple of turnovers by Clemson. I think there was an interception and 2 fumbles, if I remember correctly.
Yes, Clemson made a lot of mistakes. Now, Clemson was more competitive, much more competitive in their game than LSU was in their game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this brings us to another point. You can't trust the rankings anymore because
well, thank you very much.
I
don't even look at the rankings.
Yeah,
I think many of those people don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you can say anything you want in the off season, and and then make yourselves look like absolute gold, and then come into like game one, for instance, Baylor and what's their faces, Texas State, I think it was, and then get absolutely knocked by a school that doesn't win hardly against big schools like Baylor. So the rankings, they're always off every year, no matter what it is. I do not really trust the rankings until the college football playoff sheet comes out. And that's partly why I say there's also this bias towards the SEC. And you know what? Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I always feel like there is, because like whenever that comes out, it always seems like the SEC is on the top because they have some of the better teams on there than the Big Ten, the ACC, or the Pac-12, to which is going to be no more.
So is the SEC given favoritism? The answer, in my estimation, is yes. Early in the season, they have typically more ranked teams and higher ranked teams that at a stage in the season in which nothing or little has been proven. However, the league has earned that, if you believe in earning that from previous experience and from previous seasons' results. The SEC does, by the end of the year, every year. This may be different this year. The conference is off to a bad start, but every year for the last 15 plus years, the SEC has proven to be the best conference by the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is truth to that, and I think what needs to happen now, I think the AP poll needs to go, and then when week 8 rolls around, then we get rankings, because I don't think it's fair to look at a team's schedule. Like let's take LSU for instance, right? Let's say FSU goes and like loses every game, right? Well, let's say LSU does the same thing, and then there are going to be people like, oh, they beat the number 5 team in the country, and it's going to be like, well, you have to look at it, right? LSU loses every single game after that, and so does FSU. So is that really a top 5 team then? No, it's not.
Absolutely. I hope nobody looks at it like that, but you're right. Some people probably still do. So what you're saying, I believe, is like 90% true, but there is a factor involved that, for example, I remember this happening to Michigan State one year. Michigan State played 3 or 4 consecutive opponents that were all ranked in the top 25, but they were ranked 21, 23, 22 each week. And what did Michigan State do? They beat them. So then that knocked the team out of the rankings. Therefore, 4 weeks later, Michigan State has gone from having 3 consecutive teams on their schedule with rankings next to their names to nobody on their schedule. Well, why? Because they beat them.
Because they beat them already.
At all. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
so we have to take all of that into consideration and into context.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, maybe things will stay the same this week. Maybe all the top 25 teams will win, and then they'll blow
all win.
Well, yeah, I understand that. I think there are some that are playing each other this week. Tulane and Mississippi State will play each other.
Ole Miss.
Wait, Ole Miss.
Ole Miss and
Ole
Tulane.
Ole Miss and Tulane. Yep, that's right. But yeah, and then you got Alabama and Texas too. And when it comes down to that game, I think Alabama's going to win. I think that's a no-brainer. I still have no faith in Texas whatsoever because of the hype they get every year. And you pointed out something to me. I think it was a couple days ago that I said Texas had been put in the top 25, and then you corrected me. And I'm gonna respond by saying, yeah, that's true. But they always get the hype every year from media saying, oh, Texas is back this year. Or maybe that was a different podcast I said it on.
No, that was here.
Okay. But yeah, the hype that Texas get every year seems to be like, oh, they're back because everybody wants the blue blood schools back, and same thing for Miami. It's the same thing for Nebraska. Everybody wants the 90s, the 80s schools back because that was the best kind of
not
football.
To interrupt here, but do you really hear people talking about Nebraska being back every year?
I did this year.
Oh, I never heard that.
It was well, where I come from, it's heard every single day on the talk radios, everything. Nebraska's back before the beginning of the season, and then every time we come crashing down, it's like, damn, we suck. We need to fire the coach. It's the same charade. But yeah, Texas. I think Alabama will beat Texas by like 20 points. And until I see Texas improve against let's say
do you realize these two teams played last year?
Yes, I realized they played last year, and Alabama was frankly, to me, was overrated, and it was proven true. Texas only lost by 1 point, but
see, I'm just trying to get a clarification on when you say overrated. How was Alabama overrated? Overrated because
I think that they were projected, I believe, to go to the SEC championship and then win the national championship again.
By who?
By a lot of media coverage. ESPN, I believe, had one.
Well, if you take media across the board, we could say, if we were going into this year, talking about media outlets, we would say Georgia's been picked to win the national championship. Michigan's been picked. Ohio State's been picked. Alabama's been picked. I've heard Clemson being picked. I've heard Florida State being picked. I've heard LSU being picked. So there are all sorts of media outlets out there.
Yeah.
And when it was all said and done, Alabama was still one of the top 5 teams in the country. So I don't know that they were really that overrated. They lost 2 games on the last play of the game.
Yeah.
And they won the Sugar Bowl and finished in the top 5 in the country.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But at the same time, I still think Alabama's going to win this game by like 20 points. I need to see more from Texas in order for me to say, okay, this team is starting to come back. And it's the same thing with Oregon. I have to see more from Oregon because I don't know. There's an unsure path here that says, okay, these teams are put into the top 15. Which ones are going to come crashing down? Alabama, for certainty, won't come crashing down. They'll stay in the top 10, I believe, for the rest of the year. And then there's teams like Oklahoma, which I think will win the Big 12. Are they going to stay consistent enough to stay in the top 20, maybe even reach top 10? I don't know.
You're confusing me in this way.
Okay.
When you talk about what teams have proven, everybody's only played 1 game. So they've only had so much opportunity to prove anything. Now, if you're talking about whether they have proven things in the past, I think if I'm getting this straight, your argument's a little disconnected because at times you're talking about just this season and other times you're going back to previous seasons to try to determine proof of who's good and who's not good.
I apologize for confusion. Let me try to clarify.
Okay.
Let me try to clarify. My sentences kind of go everywhere and they kind of trail off. That's just how I am. I'm sorry. I'll try to fix it. So what I mean by that is that there's not, like, given the past and putting it into the present, I need to see more from them. So, like, take for instance Texas. Okay. Yes. Texas has maintained some 5-win, 6-win seasons for the past couple of years, and I don't know if that's totally correct. Okay.
8 wins last year, but I understand your point.
Okay.
Exactly.
So I need to see more. What I'm saying is I need to see more 8-9 win seasons in order to say this team has a potential shot within the next few games or maybe even the next 2 years to be contenders for national championship spots. So when it comes to teams like Alabama, I can say they're a contender. I can look at Georgia and say they're a contender. I can even look at Michigan and say they're a contender.
Okay, so I get that point. So you will never and this is fine. Some people try to project and try to find teams that have not accomplished to find them to be so each season there's a couple teams that break out for a first time, like TCU did last year,
Sure,
like
that's fair.
Cincinnati did 2 years ago. So there's somebody somewhere that foresaw that. It's very rare because most people are like you and like me. I'll put myself in the same category to some degree to say, well, it needs to be proven to me. I got to see it happen first. But there will be teams this year that are going to break through. Now, I don't know if they're going to make a college football playoff, but they're going to show us for a first time in quite some time that they're, a top-notch team, a top 10 team. Now, in the case of Oregon, they did go 10-3, win a Holiday Bowl, and finish close to the top 10 last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they did. Now I do remember that. I do remember that now. But I'd like to see them do it again, though.
Okay.
So I'd like to see them do it again because it's a nice start. It's a nice start, but I have to see more.
Well, you understand their coach has only been in place for one season.
Right. And that's why I say it's a good start, but I have to see more because it was like Mike Riley with Nebraska, right? His first year he had 5 wins and somehow still made a bowl game, and then the next year he popped off a 9-4 season and a loss in a bowl game, and the next year he went 4-8.
Yeah.
Now a lot of people will say, well, he didn't recruit well, but I don't care. He went 4-8, and then that was the end. It's got to be consistent with Oregon where they're popping off 8, 9, 10 win years. So that way I can say, okay, they have legitimate shots. Stay in the top 10 and you're fine. And that's really all I have. Sorry if I confused you.
No. I just wanted to clarify. I was not complaining. I just wanted to make sure I was getting you straight on that.
Yeah.
I appreciate the call. It's good to hear from you.
Yep, good to hear. Good to see you guys. Also,
yeah,
the Lions and Chiefs game. The Lions won 21-20.
Oh well, thank you. I saw that in the chat.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, you have a good show.
But thank you for that. All right, have a good night. All right, we appreciate that. I was kind of deadpanning on the 14-14 Chiefs won, if anyone caught that. Anyway, we'll keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. We'll pull up the schedule here. Why don't we do that as we take our next call so everyone can look at the game, starting with Friday night's affair in Lawrence, Kansas, that I'm excited about. I have looked at this game the entire offseason as one of the best under the radar games. No, we're not talking about elite teams here, but it's a fun little matchup with Illinois and Kansas. And Jalen Daniels is going to start at quarterback for the Jayhawks. We got the real MVP on the line. What's going on, sir?
Well, it's a tough night for my NFL team that I root for. But, Mark, it's just one game. When you're in the position,
47 games now, so you got time to recover.
Right. Well, that was my point. When you're in this position as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, it's pretty similar to how New England Patriots fans have felt in the past. I mean, you just lose a regular season game. I mean, who really cares, Mark? The Kansas City Chiefs have got such bigger goals. I mean, even if they just happened to win the Super Bowl this year, that wouldn't even satisfy me because it's about the bigger picture in general.
There's a bigger picture than winning a Super Bowl?
Yeah, you got to win the next one and the next one after that.
You cannot be happy with winning a Super Bowl.
No. I want all of them. We are chasing New England, Mark. How many Super Bowls does Tom Brady have? He's got 7. I want 7.
Sure. I got it.
That's my goal I want to see the Chiefs achieve. And I know they can do it.
I get your point that you want your franchise, your team, your quarterback to be at the top of the sport. Okay. But let's just take one season at a time, enjoy the games, and when you win a Super Bowl championship, not be just hyper thinking, oh, what about next year? What about next year? Got to win next year. Just enjoy the Super Bowl championship.
I do. It's a great success for the season, but
Yes.
as Bill Belichick said, there's no days off, Mark. No days off.
I understand there are no days off, and I've heard that out of Nick Saban talking about as the confetti is streaming down that, yeah, I'll go to the after game party, and then we're back at it at 7 a.m. recruiting and working on game film. And I get it. That's how champions become champions. They're paranoid. I get it. But you're a fan. You're not. Nothing you do impacts the team. So you don't have to be like that.
I understand that, but it's a culture mentality that I think should seep through all aspects of the organization, and that includes the fans as well. I mean, look at Detroit Lions fans tonight. They're celebrating this game as if they just won the Super Bowl. And you know what? For them, they should, because let's be realistic. I mean, this is the Detroit Lions we're talking about, not exactly a franchise with great success. So I'm happy for them. They were the better team. Congrats to Jared Goff for being undefeated against Patrick Mahomes. They've got a bright future.
I believe that the Lions are one of only 2 teams that moved over from the merger that are still in existence that have not won a Super Bowl. I think it's just the Browns and the Lions, right?
I don't know about that specific stat. I know there's like 10 teams who have never won it.
Well, yeah, the Jaguars, they've only been around since 96, et cetera, et cetera. The Texans, those teams, the Panthers, yes. But I believe, yeah, it's the Lions and the Browns. We could go through Super Bowl history, but anyway, we're not supposed to do that here.
Yeah, I know. Can I also want to break down the Louisville-Murray State game? I'm sure there's like 5 people who care about it, but it was actual college football played today.
I would be stunned if there are 5, but go ahead.
Louisville looked pretty decent. They had wide open coverages given up to Murray State, and Murray State's wide receivers just clearly weren't capable of capitalizing. Very impressive to give up 0 points to anybody, even if it's an SCS team. Louisville had all 9 quarterbacks take at least 1 snap.
What?
Yeah, seriously.
9?
9 quarterbacks took at least 1 snap. Now, it isn't listed on the depth chart because they would go in there for like 1 play and hand off the ball and then come back out. But at the very end of the game, Jeff Braun sent in 1 quarterback, got him out, sent in another quarterback, got him out, sent another one in. So all 9 of their quarterbacks play.
He should have had him at least throw a screen pass or something.
Right. But, Mark, it's crazy to me that there's teams that claim they have waves and waves of depths and then give up massive plays to teams like, for instance, San Jose State. Yeah. But you have teams like Louisville over here who can go 9 quarterbacks deep and still have some semblance of offense against an FCS team. I'm just throwing that out there, Mark, as a hypothetical.
I don't know if Tim Prangley's on the line or not.
Hey, I'm just throwing that out as a hypothetical. I thought it was very impressive, Mark, to play 9 quarterbacks.
It was. Well, I don't know if that's impressive when you're winning 56-0, but I get your point. It's amusing. I'll put it in that category.
Yeah, I would as well. And they also did a lot of rotations on defense even early on in the game. I don't know how many played defense, but when they would substitute 3-4 guys at a time. So, it was just a get-right game for Louisville. But, Mark, we got to talk about the game of the day, I guess for today or tomorrow, depending on where you live. Illinois versus Kansas.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people hyped about Kansas, what they did last year. Illinois struggled against Toledo. So everybody seems like they're going towards Kansas, but I'm going to fade the public. I think Illinois outright wins this game.
That same thought hit me at some point today, that in the offseason, I picked Kansas as reflected by the records that I predicted. I picked Kansas, but I did say, hey, this is going to be a great game. I just love this matchup. But, and everybody loves, it's almost similar to the dynamic of Colorado and Nebraska, but there's less justification for it because Illinois is better than Nebraska, at least at this point. And people will always gravitate to which team is flashier. They will always gravitate that way and believe that team to be better. And I don't know that they're better. I know Illinois has like NFL dudes playing across their defensive front and their front seven.
I agree with that. And I know Illinois' defense is expected to take a step back. For this being Jaden Daniels' first game this season, this is kind of a tall task for him.
Jalen.
Sorry.
Yes, there's a lot of Daniels out there. Fortunately, JT is off to playing with Rice, so we never talk about him anymore. But a lot of Daniels out there. Yeah.
So, would you have liked to see Jalen Daniels at least play a few snaps in the Missouri State game just to kind of get his feet wet for the season? Or
yeah, but I don't know that it's a big factor. He, of course, has been a starting quarterback, and actually, Kansas has one of the better backup quarterback situations in football. Jason Bean has been their starting quarterback for quite some time and has a ton of experience, and he's a pretty good quarterback. So Kansas, who would think in this day and age of everybody transferring and who has a decent backup quarterback? They do. So Illinois at least pulled out that game, at least didn't become one of those Big Ten or Power 5 victims to a MAC school or a group of 5. They had to pull out a 4th and forever kind of play on their final drive and kick the game-winning field goal. So at least they avoided the upset. I think it's going to be a great game.
I think it will be too. I'm also, with Kansas kind of having the high of last year, I'm just worried that, everything's more expected out of them. And I'm not sure how they can handle the success of last year. But
yes, in quotes. 6
yeah.
Yes.
Well, for Kansas, yeah. I mean, that's like the Detroit Lions tonight, winning against Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, you got to put things in perspective, Mark. But another game I wanted to talk about that was mentioned earlier was Cal versus Auburn.
Yeah.
I find it interesting because ESPN's FPI is favoring Cal to beat Auburn. Cal has a 55% chance to win. Auburn has a 45% chance to win. So, Mark, if Auburn does beat Cal, can I brag that it's an upset?
I think we all need to just completely break the bank, go out, put our faith and trust in the ESPN FPI, and take Cal. No, Auburn's going to win. But yeah, I guess you can go the upset route on that one.
Okay, 31-point win against North Texas wasn't enough to impress you.
Considering that I did not see one play of the game, I could not be impressed. But I'm not saying it's impossible or, I gained a lot of flack on Twitter today because I was annoyed by Notre Dame fans who said it was impossible. I had a couple comments come back to the channel that it's impossible for North Carolina State to beat Notre Dame. And I'm like, what? Impossible? like Notre Dame is like, it's not impossible for anyone to beat anyone. First of all, so we'll start with that premise. Secondly, North Carolina State's a pretty good team. They're kind of in the same zip code as Notre Dame to a certain extent. One of them probably is going to go 9-3 or 10-2, and the other one's going to go 8-4. And it's played in Raleigh, and it's only a 7.5-point game according to Vegas. So I was simply stating it's amusing that I'm getting all these comments in from Notre Dame fans that it's impossible just because we did a conversation with the 247 Sports guy from NC State, and we were just talking about the ways in which North Carolina State could possibly pull off the upset. And Notre Dame fans seem to be a bit offended by that. And then I went on Twitter and just basically said, well, you're kind of dumb for being offended by this. It's not impossible. And so then they all, of course, skewed that as being like, I'm predicting North Carolina State to win. No, I'm not predicting that they're going to win. I'm just pointing out that it's ridiculous for Notre Dame fans to say it's impossible that they're going to lose Saturday. That's nonsense.
Right. I mean, it'd be crazy if this team hypothetically were to lose like a group of 5 team or maybe one of the worst teams in the worst conference in America last year.
So somebody responded to my tweet by sending me a GIF of Ohio State losing to Purdue 5 years ago. And I don't know what that had to do with Notre Dame possibly losing to NC State, but I was just like, really? Do you really want to get into that comparison? Do you really want to start comparing numbers between those two schools? I don't think you do.
I would totally agree with you, Mark. And the under the radar game that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, but I think it's going to be a pretty close game that's going to be high scoring, like low 40s, upper 50s, even possibly, is Ole Miss versus Tulane.
Yeah, that
I
should be
think,
a fun one.
yeah, I think they're two explosive offenses. I think it's going to be pretty similar to the Ole Miss Arkansas game last year. I'm not sure if you remember that game at all.
Yes, I do.
But I could see it going a very similar route. That I think at the end, Ole Miss's talent advantage is just going to kind of wear down Tulane, and I think Ole Miss is going to win the game. What do you think about that game, Mark?
3:30 ESPN 2. All right, got to keep my eye on that one. Really like that game. I'm trying to think of the Tulane quarterback. His name's Michael. Can't think of his last name. Anyway, he's a really good player. They did lose their best running back. He went off to the NFL. AJ, can't think of his name either. Anyway, yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting game. And I think, of course, Quinshawn Judkins, the Ole Miss running back, is really fun to watch. Emerged as a 3-star to be one of the best running backs in college football last year. I got to tell you, I don't even know who started for Ole Miss last week against whoever they destroyed by a zillion points. Mercer, 73-7. I don't know if that was a Jackson Dart game or if that was Spencer Sanders. I'll have to look that up.
Well, I'm seeing Jackson Dart threw for 18 of 23. He had 334 yards and 4 touchdowns. So I'm going to assume he started the game.
So Spencer Sanders threw for 10,000 yards at Oklahoma State and accounted for like 95 touchdowns just to transfer his last year to sit on the bench at Ole Miss. I kind of questioned that at the time. I don't really understand that that's a great career move to be making.
Yeah, especially with the way Oklahoma State performed last week. I felt like they could use anything and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, struggling against Central Arkansas, Mark.
He was pretty securely the starter there.
Right. They might be as bad. I mean, they're going to play Arizona State. Could be that Miami, Texas A&M game we look back at the end of the year.
Yeah.
This could determine who the worst team outside of Northwestern is in all of Power 5 football.
Yes, Arizona State, who devoured Southern Utah by 3 points.
Right. And also, I don't know if you know this, Mark. Northwestern has underdogs against UTEP this week.
Are they really?
Yeah, and it's like 3.5. It's not even a field goal.
Wow.
How bad do you have to be an underdog to UTEP in the Power 5 game as a Power 5 program?
Yeah, they're going to be saved by that one game against whoever it is, Wagner, Howard, whoever they're playing.
Howard.
Somebody with a, like a surname. Yes, Howard. So Northwestern got to be thanking their AD for scheduling that 5 years ago, because that's going to save them most likely from being 0-12.
I was going to say, being underdogs against UTEP, I mean, I don't know how much lower the floor can get. So I'm not throwing it completely out there they can lose to Howard, but I think it's not insane.
Another record that could be set would be the lowest viewed Big Ten network game in the history of the network, UTEP Northwestern.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty, nobody's going to watch it. And, UTEP lost to Jacksonville State, so UTEP isn't even really that good of a team for being in the Conference USA in the first place. Just all around struggles for Northwestern, Mark. But that's all I got for you this evening. Fight on to the undefeated Detroit Lions.
All right, Daryl. All right. I bashed the 3:30 window college football in week 1, but we've done much better here in week 2. So I am certainly not devoting any screen time to this Michigan UNLV debacle. Who cares? All right, Ole Miss Tulane. Yes. Texas A&M Miami. Yes, I'm in on that. Iowa State, I know they may combine for 10 points, but I still got to keep an eye on that. Fox has deemed that worthy enough of showing, and I'm good with that game. So that's a rivalry game, and so I'm good with that one. So I've got 3 games that matter to me, and then just hey, if it's the third or fourth quarter, and for some reason all 3 of those games go off the rails, or at least 2 of them, and I've got a fourth option to go to at 3:30, then maybe I do check out Northwestern and UTEP. If they're playing like a 17-16 game in the fourth quarter, I might have to check that out. So that's the 3:30 window, which is much better than what it was highlighted last week by Ohio State and Indiana. All right, let's get back to the phone lines. We've got Holden on the line.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. What's going on tonight?
Oh, not too much, Mark. Not too much. First thing I'm going to do is complain about ESPN, which I know that you will probably agree with me on, and then we can get to previewing some games.
Why would I complain about ESPN?
Well, I know that you don't like the way that they often analyze college football, and certainly none of us like their FPI.
Yeah. Oh, ESPN certainly has its high points. Probably all of us would not have the same interest in college football if it wasn't for ESPN. So I will give it up to my former network for laying the groundwork of, in many ways, the just explosion of popularity of college football in everyone's living rooms over the past 40 years. So I will give that up to ESPN, and they produce games roughly better than it. Maybe Fox has caught up and some others, but has typically produced the best college football coverage. But yes, the FPI makes no sense to me.
All right, I can agree with you on that, but I want to talk about some of their coverage after week 1 that they did.
Okay.
If you had to give one word to the way that the ACC as a whole performed in week 1, would you say good, bad, middling, better than expected, worse than expected? Where would you place it?
I was going to say strong.
You want to guess what ESPN's headline they ran was?
Oh, Lord.
ACC struggles in week 1.
Struggles in week 1?
Boston College, Virginia, Clemson, and Georgia Tech all lost. Well, keep in mind, 2 of those lost to teams in the conference. Boston College and Virginia are basically the 2 worst Power 5 teams in the country, other than Northwestern, and we knew that already. Otherwise, Florida State wins at LSU in a top 10 matchup. UNC crushes South Carolina effectively. That game didn't really feel even as close as the score indicated.
I'm going to Google this article. I got to find this. Keep going.
This was a headline they ran on SportsCenter.
Okay.
Let me see. This was run during SportsCenter in a segment they called ACC Struggles in Week 1, and they only let's see. I have a tweet about this. Virginia was picked last in the ACC, and they lost to number 12 Tennessee. They talked about that. But they didn't mention, of course, that Virginia was picked last in the ACC. Boston College and Georgia Tech were picked to finish 12th and 13th in the ACC, and Georgia Tech lost to Louisville, a guaranteed conference loss either way. Duke beating Clemson just got the Blue Devils ranked, increasing the ACC's number of ranked teams. Not that any of us care about the AP poll much. Not to mention, no mention at all of UNC beating South Carolina by 14, of Syracuse winning by 65, and they only briefly skimmed over Florida State crushing LSU by 21.
Yeah, what is wrong with them?
I don't feel like I'm crazy to say that after 1 week, and week 0 if you want to count it, of college football, the ACC looks like the second or third best conference in the country based on very limited results. Obviously, the Pac-12 having not lost would be first.
That is a terrible job. Like they didn't even have to do any kind of in-depth analysis. All they had to do was look at scores to see, well, first of all, yes. Does Clemson losing hurt the conference? Well, possibly, because they are supposed to be the flag bearer. But if you're analyzing the conference, spoiler alert, they all finished 500. Every conference finishes 500. So you
Counting
can't,
conference games.
yes, you can't manufacture wins without losing. They're playing each other. So you just disregard those games. You can draw conclusions and analysis about those teams,
Yeah, like
but not about the
maybe say
conference.
ACC loses one national championship contender,
Yeah.
and it's just FSU now. But saying that it's a negative for the conference that Duke
Yeah.
wins over
Yeah,
Clemson.
you've got to give Duke just as much credit as you discredit Clemson for winning that game if you're evaluating the conference.
I
Yes.
can make an argument too that Clemson, I think maybe this is a hot take. I don't know, that Clemson and Duke played pretty evenly in that game, and it
Sure
was
they
really
did.
just the mistakes in the red zone.
Mhm.
I mean, Clemson gained them in yards, more first downs. Overall, their offense performed better than Duke's. They just could not perform in the clutch, in the red zone. And if anything, it's a good thing for the conference that Duke could play up to the talent level, to the athleticism level generally of Clemson, especially on the offensive and defensive lines. And I think a lot of people who watched the game have talked about how Duke really showed a significant toughness that a lot of teams have not been able to show against Clemson. And this is still a Clemson roster full of 4- and 5-star recruits. It's full of the biggest, fastest, strongest players in the country.
What did these people say about North Carolina defeating South Carolina?
Well, you're talking about the people that I'm talking about
Yes.
or ESPN.
Yes, ESPN.
It said there was no mention of it during that
Word.
segment. There was no mention of UNC having 9 sacks and 16 tackles for loss
That place
against
is
a
falling
Power
apart.
5 team from the SEC.
ESPN has screwed up a lot of things through the years, as everyone has. So I'm not picking on them. I'm saying everybody's screwed up things through the years. When you're churning out content constantly, you're going to screw. If I screwed things up, yes, I've misspoken on things or threw something up that was incorrect or whatever. But I don't have 50 people fact checking me. But anyway, that's just, it's hard for me to even come up with criticism harsh enough, because that's just pathetic.
And someone in the comments just said this. ESPN has a contract with the ACC. They
Sure.
run the ACC network and have a great deal, especially for Clemson, FSU, UNC, relative to their true market value. They are incentivized to keep the conference together, because if Florida State or Clemson goes to the SEC, they will simply be paying them $30 million more a year for the exact same media rights they already own.
Yeah, I don't know if somebody, knowing how this stuff works to a certain extent, and I didn't work in the middle of it, but I worked on the periphery of it for a long, long time, that through the channels. So, yeah, I'm not going to go through the whole process, but there are pitches made by production assistants in regards to ideas. As the college football day, for example, progresses through the day, obviously they have a set lineup for what they think is going to be important and what's going to happen, and then that changes because things unexpectedly take place, and then production assistants are encouraged to throw out ideas like, oh, why don't we do a narrative on this because this and this happened, or these Heisman Trophy nominated quarterbacks had bad days, so let's do a thing on that, or whatever it is. And a few people kind of filter it and it gets the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And this obviously went by a few people who had no clue of what they were doing.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Like if I'm in that position and somebody brings something to my desk and it's about the NHL, well, then I go grab somebody because I'm like, well, yeah, this isn't my strong suit.
But if someone put that on your desk, a college football thing that said that headline, you'd probably light it on fire and tell them to walk out of the building.
Crazy. Those production assistants, they bring in those people by the droves, and about 80% of them get thrown on the street about 3 to 4 months later after their trial. So, yeah, that one would have gone by the wayside, and they probably would have been shown the door early. But yeah, that's just insane.
There was one more thing I wanted to ask you about quick before moving into the previewing a couple games at least for this upcoming week. I know you did a whole stream watch party for it, and I'm sure you've talked about it even since, but I haven't been able to watch. What was your take on the TCU Colorado game? Was it more Colorado really is maybe a 500 better than team, a team that could, I don't think any of us actually think Colorado is probably a ranked team. I would hope. I don't see how with their depth you could really believe that's going to happen. Or did you think it was more just why is TCU ranked number 17? They might not even finish 500. Or maybe a little both. I feel like probably a little both.
Sure. This is what impressed me about Colorado. Not that I anticipated Shedeur Sanders being as sound and as accurate as he was. So he played above what I expected somewhat, but I wasn't shocked. And Travis Hunter was the number 1 rated player in high school football coming out. So not surprised there. That's the first time I've seen him play a full football game. And he was everything and more than I anticipated. He's phenomenal. What surprised me was how well organized and prepared they were for the game. That they had 68 transfer portal players, 88 total new players, and they were that tight in week 1. They didn't commit many penalties. Their defense is not good, and it's not going to be good, but at least they didn't blow coverages. They tackled reasonably well. Everybody blows tackles in college football, especially these days. But so to try to think that they're going to tackle like they're Michigan or Georgia is not going to happen. But, they look like any other college football team that's going to go 6-6 or whatever they're going to do in terms of defense. I was impressed by that. And their offensive coordinator they brought in from Kent State, he drew up some plays that were well designed and certainly took TCU off guard.
I saw this from one of the reporters I closely follow. Wasn't TCU effectively gashing the Colorado defense on the ground, and then they just kind of stopped running the ball when they got down?
Yes. Yeah,
I don't know if that's
yards per carry.
Strategy.
Especially when Chandler Morris, even though his numbers looked okay, he threw for like 280, completed probably 60% of his passes. And I expect college quarterbacks to miss passes, but don't want to say he cost them the game. You're probably hitting on it. The offensive coordinator cost them the game by not just ramming it down their throats. Why would you not want to keep Colorado's offense on the field when you're slashing them at 8 yards per carry? But Chandler Morris missed a ton of throws. They had about 550 yards of offense. They could have easily had 700 yards of total offense.
Yeah, that's kind of what I heard. Also, I guess I lied. One more thing about this past week. It might have just completely slipped out of my mind what I was going to ask. Oh no. Well, I was also going to just mention, is the Big 12 kind of just not totally there this year? Are they the worst conference in the country, maybe?
They were the worst conference in week 1. That's for sure.
I mean, I don't think none of us think, I mean, I guess, Kansas State may be, a surprise team. There's a couple could, but none of us think they have a national championship. Well, I guess Texas. I skipped over Texas as their national championship maybe contender for one more year.
This is the week across the board for us to determine about all these conferences, except for the Big Ten doesn't really play that many important games, but everybody else does.
The Big Ten has the week 1 SEC schedule, just a bunch of FCS teams.
Yeah, Iowa State, Nebraska, Colorado, Illinois, Kansas. There's a few there that we can draw something from, but it's a big week for the Pac-12 and for the Big 12. So the Pac-12, great start, 13-0, but a lot of thin wins, a lot of weak wins. Credit them that they avoided upset losses, but they didn't beat anyone really. It was Colorado, TCU, and Washington just annihilating Boise State in the second half is a really good look. But other than that, they didn't play anyone. But it's a huge week coming up in terms of evaluating these conferences. So
Yeah.
give the Big 12 one more week. We've got Texas Tech, Oregon. We've got Texas, Bama, Kansas, Illinois. There's a few others out there. We'll see if Oklahoma can avoid a possible scare or upset against SMU.
Yeah. Oh, the thing I was gonna say. Everyone, you included, I assume, hates the new clock rules, right?
I probably hate it for different reasons than everyone else does. I hate it because it's a conjured up rule, meaning I hate rules that are not consistent with the rest of the rule book. So why change the structure of the game the last 2 minutes of a half? What magically happens the last 2 minutes of the half? We know what happens. They're encouraging scoring at the end of halves and especially the end of the game to make the game exciting. But the game should not be officiated differently at any point in the game just because it's a certain amount of time left in the game. That's stupid. It makes no sense.
Yeah. This is gonna transition into the first game I want to talk about because I am a Wake Forest fan. I saw quotes from Dave Clawson after the first game, and he really mentioned two things about he vocally opposed it and the rule itself. He mentioned a few things about it. One, he said he knows it's not going to change because it's not in the hands of the coaches, the players, the schools. It's all about the TV, the money. Obviously, they just want to run more commercials, pretty much. And then two, he said for one, he felt like he was spending more time out there in TV timeouts waiting for the guy in the red hat out there holding up the stick to for the clock to run down, basically. Like almost too much time. Like the players don't even need that much of a break. And then two, Wake usually averages about 80 offensive plays a game. And this was obviously just week one. But even against an FCS team where Wake wasn't really, like we weren't chucking the ball downfield or anything like that. We were running fairly long drives. We only ran 66 plays. And that affected his ability to play younger players that he was hoping to get in snaps.
Yeah.
And that hurts a developmental program like Wake that relies on, guys being in the program 3-4 years before they really become big time players for you if they can't get that experience as a freshman or a sophomore.
I thought Kirk Ferentz had a great response to it. He was asked about it, and he said, you would think for as paranoid as these coaches are about, we don't want to give out any intel and don't watch our practices and all of that, you would think that they would want to be in the locker room forever at halftime trying to come up with adjustments and new plays and and this is what we got to game. You would think that they would want to take advantage of that. I heard him say, and I've heard other coaches say the same thing. He's like, we could cut 8 minutes out of halftime. If they want to shorten these games, cut 8 minutes out of halftime. He goes, we got too much time. We're like hanging out in the locker room. It's like, got plenty of time. Just 8 minutes out of halftime. He goes, but I don't think these special events people would like that. So.
All right. So like I said, Wake fan. So I am going to first ask you about your opinion of that Wake Vandy game. 11 a.m. start time. Thank you, ACC Network.
Why is that?
I believe you can check the schedule. I think there might be 4 ACC Network games on Saturday.
They're trying to slam them in. 11.
I think there are 4, which is funny because every game last week went 4 hours because of the TV timeouts.
11, 2, 5, 8. Yeah, they're
I'm gonna
trying
look.
to slam them in there.
I think
they're
there
putting
are.
in an extra game. Yeah.
Let's see, Wake Vandy, and then maybe no, I don't know if they put one in the tour.
Maybe there's an important lacrosse game in the ACC you need to go
to. Maybe. Oh yeah, there we go. 2:15, Clemson, Charleston Southern.
Oh yes.
And then, let's see, 5:10 UNC App State and 8:30 Florida State Southern Miss.
Well, it gives me football to watch for an hour before the other games kick off at noon. I kind of like that.
Yeah, 4 weird start times.
Because I normally wouldn't catch any of that game because there are going to be better games on, but I'll watch an hour of Vandy and Wake. I just have to remember that I got to put that in my calendar to make sure I get up to, well, I'll be up, but to check that out. Vandy and Wake. I saw no plays from the Elon game, but I hear that Griffiths looked reasonably good. Of course, he's played in the past and they dominated that game. And I know our guy, Tony Siracusa from Last Word on College Football, I think he's fairly high on Wake being a bowl team and a solid team, maybe not quite as good as what they've been the last couple of years. Vandy almost lost to Hawaii.
Yeah,
They
and then
gave up a
Stanford
big
blew out
lead.
Hawaii.
Yeah. And
So
that was not
that's
impressive.
my first thought. Is like I've heard people, especially before the season, SEC people. I talked about this with you on your show, on your preview of the season. Y'all basically glossed right over it and said, not you, you didn't really, but you had a few people with you, and they basically said Vandy's going to win, and you moved on. And just after week 1, I'm thinking Vandy could barely beat Hawaii, and Stanford, a team that I don't think anyone thinks is particularly good, went to Hawaii and blew them out by, I don't even remember, 4 touchdowns or something. They dropped like 50 points on them, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it was quite that.
I don't remember exactly what it was. I remember the final score was not that close. Maybe it's closer than I'm thinking it was, but I know they certainly won by more than Vandy did.
Yeah, especially since Vandy wasn't that good last year and they beat Hawaii by 56 points.
Yeah, and Wake beat Vandy by 31 last year. I mean, I get that Wake's not expected to be as good this year, obviously.
35-28, Vandy over Hawaii. Yeah, I saw the fourth quarter of that game because I was watching other games and thought, oh, this is a close game. I'm going to check out the end of it. And Hawaii was just hitting them with deep passes in that comeback.
Yeah. I can give you the quick rundown on the Wake Elon game, at least the important notes from like how different players look.
Okay.
Griffiths basically did what you would want a quarterback to do against an FCS team outside of 1 pick 6 that was a combination of, I think he may have just not seen the safety hiding behind the defensive line, and 2, this was addressed by Clausen in his interview. The play was run incorrectly by somebody that resulted in it also kind of messing up the play, and that was part of it. 2, during the game, everyone thought the offensive line was terrible because, frankly, Griffiths didn't have that much time on a lot of plays, especially against an FCS team, and the running game was just horrible. But after the game and watching film and reading reports from various people, it was really 2 things. 1, some bad blocking by receivers and tight ends, and then 2, and probably more importantly, Elon played 8 guys in the box almost every play of the game. They weren't letting Wake run. They said beat us in the air, and Wake said we're winning 24-0 at halftime. We're not even going to bother to keep throwing the ball because we want to see if we can run against 7-8 in the box. And the truth was, and maybe this is a slight negative, even if it's 7-8 in the box, you're against an FCS team. We couldn't run against 7-8 in the box, but until we pulled out a jumbo package with basically a running back and a fullback alongside Griffiths and evened out the numbers, and then we gashed him for 10 yards a carry for a full drive. And then the defense, frankly, looked amazing. They gave up 1 touchdown. One was the pick 6. So the defense gave up 1 touchdown, and it was on a blown running assignment where they ran a halfback counter, and the running back just had no one on that side of the field because of a blown assignment from someone who was supposed to set the edge and failed to do so.
All right, sir. We appreciate the rundown. Good luck on the ball game. Make sure that you're up and ready to go at 11 a.m.
Oh, yes, sir. I will be out there tailgating well before the game. I will be
very nice. Attendance. Cool stuff.
Yes, and hopefully be back home for some of the exciting afternoon, certainly for that Texas-Bama game at the latest.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Thanks, Holden.
You have a great night, Mark. Enjoy your stream.
You too, sir. That was Holden. I say this all the time. Love, love, love when we've got the non-Georgia, Notre Dame, Ohio State, the whole deal fans, like the Wake fans. We got Michael Hug, our Purdue fan. Love those people. Love y'all, of course, even you blue blood types, because I can relate. I got it. But like to hear from the little guys. And before we take our next call, if you're going to a game, you need tickets. Here's the deal. Ticket Smarter. So you can save on the big game you want to see. You get $10 off if you use our promo code on an order of at least $100. and $20 off an order of at least 300 using ticketsmarter.com, or you go to the TicketSmarter mobile app, use our promo codes BIG, BIG, or BIG20. They set those up for me. I didn't request those, but I think they were doing a little connection to the Big Ten, which, of course, I cover all of college football. Don't call me a Big Ten guy. But, yeah, we do a Big Ten podcast for these folks. And the Big Ten Paradigm, we're going to release that tomorrow for the first time this season. But for you, if you're going to a game, you can get 10 or 20 bucks off by using our promo codes. You've got the most competitive pricing on the secondary market. The purchase with TicketSmarter is safe and guaranteed. And you can use that promo code as many times as you want. It is not a one-time promo code. Use it over and 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 over. Go to a game every week and use our promo code there. Big or Big20. They're at TicketSmarter. Get in the game. Think smarter. TicketSmarter. All right. Let's take our next call. We got Will on the line. Will, what's going on?
Mark, you've been clashing with my fan base. Funny, I get a kick out of it. I mean, there's a lot of dumb ND fans online.
There are a lot of dumb everybody fans. So I'm actually considering two different taglines, and I don't want to release them right now. And I'm weighing which one to go with in terms of, I thought of that kind of, you just jarred my memory. Just kind of to put with the voice of college football, another tagline, and maybe we'll make t-shirts. That's what I'm thinking. But yeah, I'm clashing with some ND fans.
I get a kick out of when you go on the post-game show too. It's funny.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you for being on the post-game show. That's very cool to see you on there.
Yeah, I love being with the guys are awesome.
Yes, they're very nice guys. They do a great job, or we wouldn't have them here. Mm-hmm. I think you've been here for long enough, Will, to know that I get irritated when people are inaccurate. It drives me crazy. Mm-hmm. Like, at least have the truth out there, and then we can have a debate. You want to have a debate over the best program of all time, Michigan or Notre Dame or whatever. Absolutely. That's for fair game, but mm-hmm. don't make things up that aren't fact. Mm-hmm. So I'm always going to correct that.
It would be a bone-crushing loss if we lose to NC State. But I mean, it's possible. I mean, I don't want to say it's possible, but like, hey, if everything goes wrong,
I don't see myself picking. I don't even think I'll take the points. I'll probably pick Notre Dame even to cover, I think. So I'm not expecting it. I just was a bit annoyed by this. And Ohio State fans will do the same thing. You know, there's no way it's impossible for us to lose to fill in the blank, whomever. Well, no, it's not. You could say that this week. Like, technically, if you're going to take it to an extreme, every game's winnable by anybody. But that's Youngstown State's not beating Ohio State. Okay, so Ohio State fans could say that this week, but don't say it against NC State. Ohio State fans, don't say it against Maryland. You know, that's the only point I was trying to make there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as you know, there's been a lot of clash this offseason with the game coming up in September between, and I don't even know what some of these arguments are about, really. They both have elite blue blood histories that are arguably the best. Either one of them could say they're the best of all time. I would not have an issue with that. But recently, it's not close.
I mean, you have the right.
That's the only thing.
It doesn't mean I have to be happy about Ohio State fans bragging about it, but I can't really say it.
It's not. I just don't know if all Notre Dame fans realize that it's not even just debatable.
I mean, I've basically grown up in a time where Ohio State's basically been the dominant team in the North. I guess the North. I guess you could say North.
Like, I think I posted in that chat because one of the guys on there, I can't think of his name, but one of the guys on there, made some kind of comment about Notre Dame having, I don't want to take him out of context, or just it sounded like Notre Dame having better seasons than Ohio State or something to that degree. And that's why I put in the comment, Notre Dame has not had a better record than Ohio State since 1999. What are you talking about?
Well, 2011 too.
2011. Yes. I put 2011 in. We take exception to that, but it was a football season that was played. It counts. Yes. But okay. Once since 1999.
Yeah. But I don't know. I say, like, I think this could be the year, but I mean, I'm like, hey, we have a better. I mean, right now, I haven't seen much of Kyle McCord to say that he's a better quarterback than Sam Hartman. So that's big. That's a big way to win a game.
Right this second, he's not.
It's a big factor.
Sam Hartman's a better quarterback right this second than Kyle McCord.
And that, like, gives a team with less talent a much better chance to win if they have the better quarterback.
At home? Absolutely.
At home, yes.
Yeah, so my issue has been, I don't have any issue with Notre Dame fans being happy about their start and that they've got their best quarterback in 20 years and being optimistic about winning that game. They very well could win that game. Just a lot of the Notre Dame fans that I run into, they've been acting for 6 months like they've already won the game.
Yeah, well, people aren't smart sometimes.
It's going to be a very interesting game. Maybe we'll do a watch party for that game.
Yeah, and it'll be very emotional during it. But Michael said, I don't know if I even said this, what made you a Notre Dame fan? My dad's a Notre Dame fan. My dad went to I look Irish, and I am from mostly Irish heritage. And my dad went to a Catholic school, and his freshman year was 88. Everyone there rooting for Notre Dame. So
there you go.
That's how. But and talking about the other games this week, like, I don't know, I'm gonna be excited to watch the Cal Auburn game just because last time a team from the SEC came to the West Coast, LSU lost to UCLA, so I feel like there's a strong chance that that could happen again. And also Tulane and Ole Miss. I know you were talking to Darrell about this game too, but I also feel like Tulane has the better quarterback. They're at home. I mean, I just don't.
Why can't I think of his last name? Michael
Pratt.
Pratt. Thank you.
Yeah, Michael Pratt, and I don't think Jackson Dart's great. I mean, he's not bad, but I feel like Michael Pratt is better. So that gives Tulane a strong chance to win that game too.
Back to the Cal game.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't think, when I was talking to Ballard and I was basically saying Auburn needs to win this game, they should not lose this game. It's not that I don't think that they can lose the game. I believe they could go out there and lose. I think that's a pretty bad loss for the conference and for Auburn if they lose to Cal. I don't care where the game is.
Yeah, it would be a bad loss, but I still think there's a strong, I mean, I would say 60-40 Auburn wins. But I don't know. I mean, Cal looks much better than I thought they would.
Yeah, they really poured on the points. Yeah.
Yes, I don't know. I'm just Texas A&M Miami just doesn't excite me. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's because, like, I don't like how both programs are ran. It's like the NIL bowl. Pay to play bowl.
I get that. I
mean, but if it's going down to the wire, I'll watch it. But
I think that 3:30 window's
it's a strong
fun one. Yeah. I hated to shoot down our buddy Jackson because he came on here last week talking about the 3:30 window. And you know how Jackson is. Jackson's fired up.
Jackson's excited about everything.
He's excited about everything. So he's like, that 3:30 window is amazing. It's amazing. And I finally said, Jackson, it's not amazing. It sucks. It's the worst 3:30 window I've ever seen. I'm like, sorry, Jackson. I know you're excited. But
I wish,
this 3:30 window, there are some good games.
Yeah. I'm excited about the Washington State-Wisconsin game as well, especially
I like that
because
one too. Yeah,
I think the fans will be up for it in the Palouse. I think Cam Ward I mean, I feel like Cam Moore just has to do enough, and they can win. I don't know. I just don't think that Tanner Mordecai threw 2 interceptions in week 1. So I feel like if Washington State does enough to stop the run like they did last year,
This
there's
is
a
one of
strong
those.
chance.
I'm sorry, Will. This is one of those games where I feel bad for the Pac-12 in that this is one of those games where it seems like the Pac-12 does not get credit.
Yeah.
Like they beat Wisconsin on the road last year, and really that gets disregarded by people as, well, that didn't really matter. That was an upset, but Wisconsin's going to beat them this year. It was like when Oregon went to Ohio State, and within, by 2 days later, people were like, that wouldn't happen again. They did. They beat them. And so here we go. That's an interesting game. Big Ten and Pac-12, and the Pac-12. 13-0 is great, but I want to see it this week. So think about all these games in the Pac-12, Will. You got Arizona State taking on Oklahoma State. We got this Oregon game against Texas Tech, Washington, Wisconsin, Utah, Baylor. Who am I missing? Cal, Auburn. There's Colorado, Nebraska.
Yeah.
There's a slew of them. So I think there's 8 against the Power 5. I think that's what I counted. So I think they'll probably go 4-4, something in that range.
I mean, I know there's a delay in the Arizona State game, so people are saying that Arizona State's better than what they showed against Southern Utah. But I mean, still Southern Utah.
Yes.
So I was hoping I could see Drew Pine and when the game was already blown out, but the game never got to that point where Drew could come in.
No, it did not. Not at all.
Yeah. Well, definitely an exciting week of action, Mark. I gotta hit the hay. I gotta go to work. So.
Oh, yes. Definitely get your rest, Will.
Definitely
Appreciate
excited for that. Yeah, excited for the action this week for sure.
Yes, we will see you after the Notre Dame NC State game.
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, Will. Thanks. All right, Shoelace Sooner, thank you so much for the contribution, sir. Appreciate the show, Mark. Give me a call early next week. I will do that. I'm scrambling to my calendar right now. Otherwise, I will forget. Cole checking in. Nebraska Cole. Bold. Nebraska versus Colorado gets more viewers than Bama, Texas. Let's hang on just a second here. Let me think. Okay, we've got a slight advantage to Colorado, Nebraska, because they're playing an over-the-air Fox game. So think about this. There are 340 million Americans. There are about 115 million TV households. At its peak, there might have been like 111 or 12 million households a few years ago. And at its peak, ESPN reached about 101 or 102 out of the 112. And now that's down to, I don't know what the numbers are exactly, but it's around 80. So they've lost 20 some million homes. So ESPN. So it depends what you consider. Oh, viewers. You said viewers. So you could be onto something there. Bama, Texas may get a better rating. But yeah, more people may watch Nebraska, Colorado than Bama, Texas. Who else is playing versus Bama, Texas? Let's see. The noon window, I think, is stronger than. So the other things that are going to impact that, as you well know, Cole, is the other games in the window, and then how good that Nebraska-Colorado game is into the fourth quarter, that people are continuing to watch it. Same thing with Bama, Texas. Although not as many people, I think we're different. I think most of us are different because we are ardent college football fans. So we're constantly looking for the best games. where your typical American that just turns on a college football game, basically that thing's still on in the fourth quarter at 38-10, and 4 people are passed out on the couch not watching it. And that's, they're not like, oh, I got to catch the game, and I got to, 3 minutes left, and that's a 4-point game. Oh, Auburn's driving. I got to go over there. They're not doing that. So at noon, the main game that is going to take viewers away from Nebraska, Colorado is Notre Dame and NC State. So do not underestimate the draw of Notre Dame. And we'll see how close the game is. This is a bit of a joke, but it actually holds true. Ohio State draws more more viewers to the Big Ten Network than anybody. And the highest rated game on the Big Ten Network last year wasn't some of their best games. Like Purdue, Maryland was a really good game. Illinois, Iowa was close. Iowa, Nebraska, they had really good games on the Big Ten Network, mostly in the Big Ten Western Division. The Big Ten Network basically is a Big Ten Western Division and lower end Eastern Division network. That's but they get to show Ohio State or Michigan when they're playing the worst teams on the schedule. So Ohio State will take some viewers that are intrigued or just diehards to that game, but it's not going to heavily impact Nebraska, Colorado. The other one that's a decent game, but not a big eyeball type game is Utah and Baylor. The fan bases are relatively, especially on the Baylor side, relatively small. Purdue, Virginia Tech should get a relatively low number. So, okay, Nebraska, Colorado. Again, Notre Dame, NC State, that's the game that could be an issue for your viewership totals there at noon. At 7:30, Bama, Texas is pretty much on its own. All right, so we do have really nothing kicking off at 7 o'clock. If you want to watch some college football on the NFL Network, you've got Houston and Rice. I find that amusing, but it's kind of cool, kind of fun that the NFL Network, when they could be really hyping up Sunday's games and all that, are showing Houston and Rice on the NFL Network. Okay. And that goes to show you the power of live events. When I worked at ESPN, they preached that to us all the time, that you would think a really well done studio show with the best analysts, NFL, college football, something that everybody's into, would bring it. But in this day and age, people are watching this kind of stuff. People are watching listening to podcasts, watch podcasts, that they don't need to hang on to every word of, NFL prime time or college football today or whatever, like they did in 1995. So live events like ESPN over the last 15 years and the explosion of the internet and the explosion of digital content rivals has gone out and made sure that, hey, we'd rather show a softball game that seems like it's not a big deal, or a lacrosse game or whatever, than have a studio show that they're talking about the NFL, because people are going other places for that discussion. So why did I say all that? To say this, that Bama and Texas, where's the game? It's at 7:30, right? I can't find it. I thought that game was at 7. Maybe it's at 7:30, 7:30. There it is. Texas, Bama. Oh, you do have an Oregon, Texas Tech game. We'll take some eyeballs. We'll probably, I got to think Texas and Bama are going to be somewhere in the 7 million range. And Oregon, Texas Tech might be in the 1.5 million range. And then you've got UCF and Boise State. That's not going to do anything, even though that's kind of an interesting game. But you got to be a diehard college football fan to get into that one and not be watching Bama, Texas. I don't know what these network ratings are doing with people watching multiple games. I don't know what they do with that now. I guess they treat every device as a individual. Wisconsin, Washington State, that's That's got to be one of the weakest. I'm not talking about the game. It could be a really good game. I'm talking about fan bases. Wisconsin's a draw. Washington State's not a draw. Uh, they're a reasonable draw, but compared to teams in the Big Ten, they're not a draw. That's a weak game from a rating standpoint. Wisconsin, Washington State. This was probably ABC actually wanting to be stronger in other time frames, in other time slots in the day, like Notre Dame, NC State at noon, and whatever they've got at 3:30. Is that the I forget what they've got at 3:30, because it within the same company under the Disney umbrella, they've got Bama, Texas. So why not spread out our audience and not challenge Bama, Texas with another strong game? So this isn't necessarily ABC throwing up their best game in prime time. No, they didn't do that. They put their best game at noon, Notre Dame, NC State, and I forget who they've got at 3:30. Who else is going to take eyeballs? CBS has a UCLA San Diego State game. Now that game's not going to draw well, but it is on CBS, so it is over the air. So that's an interesting take. We'll have to, Cole, you come back, and even if you're wrong, bring that up next week. Excuse me. And I will not make fun of you. We will just talk about it. All right, Jeffrey showing up to talk some college football. What's going on, Jeffrey?
Appreciate you having me on. And by the way, the 3:30 game on ABC is Texas A&M Miami. That's
okay, that's right. Yeah, I forgot.
So obviously the game of the overrated teams, the NIL, the 5 stars, all that kind of thing. So, I mean, all I know is that I was laughing really hard earlier what you said with Jackson. That was funny about that every window's great, every game's fantastic. Hey, Louisville Murray State game tonight was fantastic. I mean,
yes.
56-0.
That conversation with Jackson, I let about 3 amazings go by about the 3:30 window, and then I just couldn't take it anymore. And I said, Jackson, it's not amazing. It sucks. The 3:30 window sucks. It's the worst one I've ever seen.
I mean, I thought it was all right. I mean, I had Ohio State, Indiana, so I mean, I couldn't complain.
It was the worst 3:30 window I've ever seen.
Man, I had to let it slide. But yeah, I know what you mean. It was funny though. But I mean, regardless, I mean, it was week 1. College football's back. You know, kind of a little hard to complain too heavily. But I mean, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. Well, technically today, because it's already, I keep at 1:14 a.m. But today you've got Kansas, Illinois. I like that game.
Oh, I do too.
That's a really nice little game. And then obviously Indiana State's on as well. And I have to watch some of that.
Can't we get a game like that every Friday? Kansas, Illinois. See if all the conferences would get together and everybody would schedule together and they would cooperate and there would be a governing body to work out the schedule, then we could work that out probably.
I mean, the only thing that's negative about Friday night football, because Tom Allen actually mentioned this a few days ago, is that it hurts high school football. He's an advocate for no Friday games because of high school football, but I also understand as well having a game like that, like a Kansas, Illinois, it's not like a massive game where a lot of people are going to ditch going to their high school, local high school game to watch that game on TV. And plus a lot of people, when you've got, data these days or whatever, you can just watch it on your phone while you're watching the high school game, keep up with it. So, I mean, it's not Tom Allen's looking at it from like a 1990s point of view or 80s point of view. I get why it's not as big a deal anymore, but I do like the Friday games.
There is validity to what he has to say. There's also a lot of validity, of course, to what you have to say about that issue. I don't want to be unsympathetic to the high school football nation, but if somebody's going to stay home to watch Illinois, Kansas, and not go to your high school football game, they probably don't care about your high school football game anyway. So,
now, if they're staying home for Indiana State, then they really don't care.
So, that whole, I get it. And most of these guys grew up going through high school. as high school coaches. I mean,
he
we
was a
all went
high
through
school
high
coach
school.
for 18
Yes.
years. So
So I understand that, and they want that attention and so forth. But, again, people are going to do what they're going to do and want to do. And if that's taking away from your high school football crowd, then you've got bigger issues.
Yeah,
So
that's hilarious.
it's just and plus, let's wake up and understand this is America. People can schedule their games whenever they want. They don't all have to cooperate and play at certain times. And it's like,
I mean, my favorite's when you get Maction, the Mac action, as they always call it, and later on the year on Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights. I'm like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. You got like Buffalo and Akron at 8:00 on ESPN2 on Tuesday, or ESPNU, and I'm like, I dig those games.
See, I enjoyed the COVID year. You're not an NFL guy at all, are you?
I watch the NFL. I watch the Lions Chiefs tonight, but
Okay.
I watch college football more, but I do watch it.
Yeah. So I enjoyed the COVID year because they started moving games. I think they only missed like one NFL game the whole season. They got them all in, but they were playing them on, like, it would be great because a few games would get canceled on Sunday, and there was one week where they played like a triple header on Tuesday. There was a game like
that. It was
there was like a game like 1:00 in the afternoon and a 4. And I was like, this is awesome. It's
in the
Tuesday
candy store.
Can watch the NFL. This is great.
Yeah, and it's awesome because, like, for me, I'm stuck with the Panthers every week, so that time slot's broken because I can't watch anybody else but the Panthers. So it's like when that happened, I was able to watch these other teams finally, on a regularity more often.
That is the worst when you're stuck in a certain area of the country. So for 19 years living in Connecticut, I'd have to watch the freaking Patriots every week. The Patriots were on, and they played in the worst division. So every game was Patriots, Bills when they were horrible. Jets were horrible. The Dolphins were horrible. These games were terrible. Yeah, it was just.
It's the opposite with the Panthers, though, because they're always the one on the losing end, usually. I mean, outside of the brief years of Cam Newton, they've been pretty bad.
Yeah.
So
I do love the red zone.
Yeah, but I mean, definitely all that beside the point. I mean, tomorrow night, though, or tonight, I'm looking forward to the Illinois-Kansas game because of the fact, Jalen Daniels, he missed week 1. He didn't play. He's supposed to play today. And if he, plays like he, showed at times last year, I really think Kansas can get that win because Illinois – trying to overlook the fact that, they played Toledo, which is a really good MAC team. They won the MAC last year. So that wasn't a bad team they played, but Illinois still doesn't look as good as last year. So Kansas can win, and it's at night, and the night atmospheres always make it, a little bit tougher to win because the crowd's a bit more amped. So I think Kansas can get it done. I really do. I think that, it's going to be a close game. It could go either way, but I actually think Kansas is going to pull it off. Possible.
Well, they are the favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas is. I've been thinking Kansas the entire offseason for this game and the entire week, kind of in the back of my mind, but I'm starting to give Illinois a little consideration.
Mm-hmm.
I may change my pick on that one.
For me, it was the opposite. I leaned Illinois at first, and then I flipped to Kansas. And once I make my prediction, I'm sticking with it. So even if I'm like right now leaning Illinois, I'm like, nope, I picked Kansas. I'm sticking with Kansas. But earlier in the week, I was leaning more with Illinois. I know that the Indiana State game, Indiana should win, but Taven Jackson, Brendan Sorsby, who looked better? Because obviously they're both going to play tonight, and Indiana needs to figure out who's going to play at quarterback against Louisville and beyond this season. They can't keep doing this 2-quarterback system thing. I felt like Sorsby passed better, but I felt like Jackson gives you more upside potential. Like he was a better scrambler, and he had that one good throw. But what did you think about both of them?
It's a great question because that option offense that they put together with Taven Jackson, they need to either scrap that completely or they need to work on it. Because it's rough.
It was bad. It was terrible. So predictable.
Yeah, it's just it was like the NFL started running option plays like 10 years ago, and you knew the quarterbacks weren't going to keep like they didn't want to keep the ball. They never were going to. And so the defender would never get barely be breathing on them. And they were like, get rid of the ball. It was just awful. But you can't win by not throwing the ball downfield. So I got to think that Taven Jackson has that skill set that needs to be developed. They obviously don't, at this point, trust him to make the right reads and decisions. It probably has nothing to do with his arm. Probably has everything to do with his inexperience and them not wanting him to turn the ball over. So I think because of that he most likely is the guy, because he's got the legs and he brings that anyway. They just kind of have to ease him into and develop the passing game as they go along.
Yeah, I mean, he looks solid when he was given a chance. Like you said, it's not the arm, because he threw like one pass that was incomplete down the field. It was like 60 yards he threw down the field. So he's got the arm. But like you said, the inexperience, and even Tom Allen and the offensive coordinator both basically said that they were being conservative. It was done on purpose. We all knew that. We could tell what they were doing. They didn't. That's why them going for it on 4th and 2 didn't make sense. But yeah, since they have two inexperienced quarterbacks, they didn't want to rattle them. But I mean, in a way, I'm glad they didn't. But I also want to see what they're capable of, especially Taven Jackson, because I do think that he has more upside for sure. I'm interested in seeing how they play tomorrow, and I hope that Taven Jackson plays really well so he can maybe become the starter. Because if not, if Indiana still hasn't figured it out by the Louisville game in week 3, there could be some issues. But again, I know obviously no one cares about that game. So some of these games, except me probably, but some of these games here in the noon window are really intriguing. I mean, I wish Baylor, because you talked about, you kind of threw away that game a little bit. I know you're talking about ratings, because obviously primetime Colorado, like they're all a rage right now, so they're going to get views. Notre Dame's going to get views, and the Utah Baylor game might not get as many views. But man, I wish this was Baylor from 2 years ago, because man, this game would be fantastic. This would be the game I'd be paying most attention to. Like Dave Aranda went from the guy I was like, he's top 10 coach in the country, he's fantastic, to like, what happened to Baylor? Like, I really like Baylor. They were so interesting when they beat Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. It was like the return of Matt Rule all over again. And I don't know. I mean, this is a game that they would really, it would be well served for them to win, to get themselves back on track. But I don't see it. I have Utah by like 14, but I hope it's a good game, because I like seeing Baylor good. It was cool.
Yeah, don't shortchange Baylor completely. Again, the bounce back rule I believe in, and a lot of these teams are going to look much better or worse in week 2 than they did in week 1, and they are at home. So
the only other problem is Blake Shapen's out, and he's out for like 3-4 weeks, and we don't know. I don't know anything about the quarterback, because Gary Bohannon went to South Florida, so I don't really know anything about that. If they have Blake Shapen, maybe I don't know. And plus, it's a noon game, so to me, the home crowd for Baylor, I mean, something about a night game. It's just the crowd's better, and plus, since they lost that Texas State game, will the crowd really be amped to try to help them out, their team, or will there be a lackluster crowd because they lost that game and there's not a lot of hype there? I don't know how that angle is going to work, like how enthused the crowd's going to be, how big the crowd's going to be. I don't know. And I know Utah doesn't have Cam Rising back yet, but, Bryson Barnes, Nate Johnson look good, but they were at home. Maybe they'll be rattled on the road. I believe Baylor could win. If they won, it wouldn't be insane to me, but I'm not confident in Baylor. I'm not really confident in NC State either. I think Notre Dame's going to win that. I mean, the problem with the way Notre Dame's set up is they got those running backs, all of them that can play.
Yep.
And then Sam Hartman's he hasn't even shown what he can do yet at Notre Dame. And this is the game where he probably will. And what makes this even worse is the fact he's familiar with NC State being at Wake. Like all of these factors that you just line them up, it does not look good for NC State. And I know Brennan Armstrong was at Virginia, so he knows, Sam Hartman as well. Like, he knows and all that, but he don't know the defense of Notre Dame as much. It doesn't line up to me well for NC State. They could win, just like with Baylor. They could, but I don't like NC State's chances.
So you're not liking the NC State players and coaches being familiar with Sam Hartman?
That's true. I mean, that's true. That's correct. Definitely. I just think he's really good. I mean, I don't think he's like top 5, top 10 quarterback in the nation. Maybe back into top 10, depending on where you see him.
Do you know how many? I want to verify this because our NC State guy told us this the other day. Do you know how many interceptions Sam Hartman's thrown in 2 games against NC State?
I don't know. I'm either going to say 0 or like 8. I don't know.
6.
6. Okay. So it's on the high end. Well, I mean, it could. I mean, but to be fair, NC State, I guess you would say maybe they had some good defense. I don't really know. I mean, plus the fact he's on a better team now at Notre Dame than he was at Wake. I mean, it's
not a better team. I don't know if he's got better receivers.
I mean, that's true. It's interesting. I mean,
really good wide receiver core at Wake.
I mean, you know more about those teams probably than me. I mean, I know them fairly decently, but to me, I don't see it. Like, if Notre Dame is legit, like they're actually gonna be really, really good this year and have a great shot of being a playoff contender, they don't need to slouch on this game. They don't need to lose or not look convincing. They need to win by a substantial amount.
So I want to make sure that what I was told is correct. So Sam Hartman last year against NC State, 29 of 48. 397 yards, 2 TDs, 3 picks. And
most of those stats were good until the picks.
Didn't run the ball well. 6 carries, -14. That's obviously sack yardage too. The season before, actually Wake won the game, even though he only went 20 for 47 for 290, 3 TDs, 3 picks.
Oh, I mean, if he does that, there's a shot, I guess. I mean, but
Yeah,
Brennan Armstrong, to be
picks.
fair, he's been turnover prone too since the good Virginia year. So if he coughs it up a couple times, it could just cancel it out. So who knows? I still got Notre Dame though. Colorado, Nebraska. I know that everyone's talking about because again, prime time. He's all the hype, but to me, I'm going to have to see it to believe it on whether Nebraska is finally going to get blown out. Because I'm seeing people saying that Colorado is going to win by 21, 28. And I'm like, wait a minute. Nebraska always barely loses. They always do. No matter who they play. If it's Ohio State, Northwestern, they lose by 3-7. So until they don't.
Much better defenses.
I'm picking them to lose by 7. That's what they do. They lost to Northwestern by 3. Or a couple points that year, or however many it was. And then the year before, they lost to Ohio State by 9. That's what they do. They're not going to lose this game by a lot unless they're really starting to get worse.
Really, the only reason I have a little bit of confidence, the major reasons that I have confidence Colorado is going to win this game over Nebraska is that Colorado, at least we've only got one game to go on. They look like a team that plays with a ton of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
We know where that comes from. It plays with a ton of confidence, and they just play loose and aggressive. While Nebraska still, I think Matt Rule's trying to get over them playing tight and mistake prone and all that. And I think he'll break through that eventually. Mm-hmm. But as Michigan man Jason's letting us know, Nebraska. Why didn't that pop up when I hit it? Nebraska is 2-14 in games decided by 7 points or less.
Yes.
Now that's 2-13 under Scott Frost, and that's 0-1 under Matt Rule. Plus, people they get too excited about offense and don't take the defensive side into consideration. So Nebraska loses by 3 at Minnesota. It's 13-10. They look awful on offense. If they lost that game 38-35, I guarantee people would have a different perception of Nebraska right now.
Which is insane. I mean, they weren't bad. If Jeff Sims doesn't throw the 2 picks and they don't have that fumble with the running back, they probably win the game. And even if it was by an ugly 10-3.
You didn't need to change all those things. If you change one of those things,
I agree.
They probably win the game.
100%. They weren't bad. I watched that game. It was excruciating. I'm like, no. When Jeff Sims threw that final pick, I'm like, yep, they're doing it again. They're going to lose.
Yeah.
And that guy kicked the field goal and they lost. And I'm like, it's the same thing. I literally, if I was Matt Rule, I mean, it might not work, but if I was Matt Rule, I would literally just put on the whiteboard or whatever chalkboard and just put win. Just win. Like, you don't even have to put anything else. Don't even say how to win. Just win. If you want to win, You know what to do. Don't make mistakes. Don't throw picks. Don't fumble the football. Just win. That's all you got to do. I mean, they literally have had more opportunities to win games than almost any other team that I've ever seen in the last couple of years in my whole life. And I've watched football since I was about 5, so about 14 years. I've never seen this before. I've never seen a team consistently blow games, especially when it's wide variance in competition. So Nebraska loses to Michigan and Ohio State by 3. But then they also lose to bad teams like Northwestern by 3. And it don't make sense. Like, using that logic, if you're competitive with Michigan and Ohio State, you should blow the doors off Northwestern. But they just make mistakes. They make enough mistakes, and no matter who they play, to lose by 1 score. And it's insane. It's like, how many times do you have to do that before you finally don't do that? It blows my mind, but I think it's going to be a close game for that reason. I'm not confident Colorado blowing them out because that's just the way Nebraska is.
All right, Jeffrey, anything else? We'll take our next call.
I mean, there's just too many games to go off, but I'm looking forward to the Ole Miss Tulane game because it's an SEC team on the road, like Will mentioned. I'm looking forward to Auburn Cal. That's going to be a good game. And in Miami, Iowa State. Looking forward to all of them. Didn't get to all of them, but thanks for taking my call. It's going to be a great week too, and hopefully there's going to be a lot of classics potentially.
We'll be back tomorrow.
Maybe I can get in some of those games that I didn't get to. Talk about if Indiana look good.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Last call of the night. Golden Playbook. What's going on?
How's it going?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
Doing good. So I think the game I'm excited for
Yes.
is probably Texas and Alabama.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think I'm going to go with Texas to win that game. I think they could pull it off.
Oh, they can. I know they can. I don't know if they will, but they can certainly win this game.
Yeah. Yeah, this weekend's going to be a pretty tough game for us, on the road against NC State. And yeah, a lot of our fans, I'll be honest, they're delusional, like a lot of them.
Delusional about what this season, this game, just in general?
Just like what you said earlier about, I forgot what you'd said, but you said that there's some ND fan saying that we had a better record than OSU or something. Like, I forget what you said.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with excuse me, every fan base being excited about their team, but just the issue was that, yeah, I get into these back and forths on social media with Notre Dame fans that obviously don't understand. And it's not just Notre Dame fans, it's every fan base that just don't understand math. So it's not hard to to see. But I think Notre Dame fans have every right to be excited about this season. They're off to a great start. They got a legit quarterback. They've recruited well. They've got their coach of the future. It could be a great season for Notre Dame.
Yeah. The NC State game will be tough. Anything can happen. I think NC State could upset. It'll get an upset, but I have a lot of confidence. I don't think it will happen, but NC State is a good team. I think they led the ACC last year, didn't they?
Led the ACC in
yards, didn't they?
NC State. No, I highly doubt that. I would think that North Carolina did.
Oh.
No, they didn't lead the. And even if they did, their best receivers are gone. Their quarterback's gone. Pretty much their offense has been somewhat gutted. They had a left tackle that was a number 1 draft choice. So they're not really the same team on offense, especially as they were last year anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that we could win this game, It'll probably be a close one. I would say maybe in the first half it'll be like back and forth. And then the second half, we just like pull away, like late or something. Win by at least like a touchdown or so.
Yeah. I think that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, it will be a good game. But yeah, I'm really excited for um, Colorado and Nebraska. I don't know how I feel about Colorado yet, but I think they could win this game, but I'm not 100%.
Well, I will let you know this, Golden Playbook. Nobody is 100%.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, I think be a lot of interesting games.
yeah, I think it's a good week of games. Much better than last week.
For sure.
Right, sir? Anything else?
Nope, that'll be it.
I appreciate the call.
Alrighty, thank you.
Have a good night. All right. One more time. If you're going to a game, you can save at Ticket Smarter, $10 off a purchase of at least $100, $20 off a purchase of at least $300. Ticketsmarter.com or the Ticket Smarter mobile app. Use the promo code that we provide, BIG, BIG, or BIG20 for the $20 off at Ticketsmarter.com. And there you go. Appreciate you being here. We plan on coming live after the Illinois-Kansas game on Friday night, right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate everyone. And let's make sure that we did not miss any super chats. Tulane Sooner, who you got? Tulane Ole Miss. I will have that pick on Patreon. I believe you're a member. If you're not, you certainly should have a lifetime membership for everything you've done. So that pick will be headed your way. Cole, we already talked about Bama, Texas viewership against Nebraska, Colorado. We'll check that out next week and see how we fared there. And again, we'll be live after the Illinois-Kansas game. I expect that to be a really good one. And then also, man, this happens every week. I've got so many topics that I would like to hit on during the week that we haven't gotten to, but I think we'll wait until the games are played on Saturday to really start to break down these conferences, because we've got so many matchups between conferences that I think after this week, then we can start to get a read on who's playing the best between the conferences. And as Tim is letting everyone know, please hit the like button on your way out. And we will see everybody back here on Friday. Keep it locked in here at the Voice of College Football, because we've got content coming your way all the time. If you're into the numbers, meaning the wagering numbers, we've released videos on most of the main channels out there, Nebraska, USC, and others. Most of the channels regarding the betting lines with Steve Merrill from Wager Talk. So check out those videos. He's got predictions on all those teams. So Kansas, Illinois should be a good one. We'll see you right after the game on Friday.